Everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to talk about two things. The first one is Bill Maher. He says a lot of real stuff and he gets a lot of people on his side because it's like, wow, Bill Maher's being a reasonable Democrat, but it's election time. So Bill Maher's being sneaky and trying to act like Joe Biden's doing a great job with the economy and things are booming and people are just overreacting. So we're going to talk a little bit about Bill Maher being sneaky for Biden. And the second story is about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for president. This is the most asked question I've gotten on Instagram. Probably like 30 to 80 people have hit me up over the last couple of weeks and have asked, what do you think about RFK? What do you think about RFK for president? I know what you're saying about Trump and Biden, but what do you think about RFK Jr. for president? So today, the second part of the story or the show is going to be that I'm going to tell you what I think about RFK Jr. for president and why personally I will not be voting for him, even though I do appreciate some things he's done. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being here. Rare Saturday edition of Dream Rare Podcast. Check it out. If you're here, there's no need to check it out because you're already here. Check in like a hotel, and it's starting now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on? Let's see. We got Charlotte, Eddie, Phaedra, NZ, Iron Lung 710. I think this is the first time I got a notification for your live. Well, that's incredible. Thanks for being here. And someone says, shout out Eddie. I think I just did. Or are you shouting out Eddie? Allison on Facebook. We got Neck on Facebook. Holly, Christina, Guacos. What is that, like guacamole? No, I'm just kidding, but probably not. It's probably not that. So let's not joke about that because it might be offensive or something. But just trying to be funny, just trying to keep the show alive. Anyway, let's get into it because I really want to talk about second RFK Jr. for president. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Rumble. I don't do the same thing on everything. I mean, I do my lives on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, but Instagram, I don't post everything I post on Twitter. Twitter, I don't post the same things that I post on Facebook. So I think some of my audience, they've never really heard me talk about RFK for president. And honestly, I haven't really talked about it in months. So it's the most asked question I've gotten. So I'd rather just do a live stream and explain myself rather than look like a psychopath typing out stuff, what I think about RFK Jr. for president and why I won't be voting for him and why I'm not really pumped about his presidential campaign, even though I do like his work in the pharmaceutical industry. But the first thing I want to talk about is Bill Maher, how sneaky he's being for Joe Biden. And just like I did yesterday, I'm not sure. I listened back a little bit to my podcast yesterday. I think at some points I did a really good job explaining it. Other points, maybe it didn't come across as great as I would want it to, or maybe as good as I can do. So today I'm going to work that in a little bit because Bill Maher is the prime example of, I'm not going to call him controlled opposition necessarily, but the prime example of someone who knows how to say things that you agree with to get you to do things that aren't good. So I've listened to a lot of Bill Maher. I'm not like a super fan by any means, but I've watched his show. I've watched his segments on Twitter. I listened to the entire Joe Rogan podcast. I've listened to more Bill Maher than I've listened to a lot of people because he's funny, interesting, and does say some real stuff. So now that election season is around, him and Jon Stewart, they're popping back up and they're covering for Joe Biden and the Democrats. Bill Maher just did this little segment about how good the economy is and how everything's actually really good. And people are over exaggerating like, oh yeah, he's old, but he's doing a really good job. Like that's Bill Maher's point. Like, yeah, he's old. Yeah, he's goofy. Yeah. I don't like him that much either, but like he's doing pretty damn good. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, and the thing is, I've listened to Bill Maher enough to know that he knows that things are not that good. Like he said on Joe Rogan's podcast that when he grew up, it was like Leave It to Beaver, where everything was safe and clean and nice. And now the whole country's basically falling apart and it's not safe and it's not nice anymore. So I know that he doesn't believe that because I've listened to him say the opposite talking point of like, it was way better when I grew up. Like he understands Make America Great Again, the concept. I'm not saying he likes Trump necessarily, but he gets the concept of like, make America what it was when you grew up, when it was safe and clean and nice and communities existed. I've heard him say it. I've heard him talk about it. So now to see him be sneaky and just come out and make this case for Joe Biden, like there's really no reason not to like him. Like, kind of downplaying border, just like Jon Stewart does, downplaying, although maybe the stock market's up, groceries are expensive. People aren't getting paid as much. We're really bamboozled by, I think, the COVID money printing and the foreign aid. And he just acts like it doesn't exist. So my thought is that's Bill Maher's role, right? His role is to be funny, to be likable, to be pretty conservative as a liberal, but then to get the people that listen to him to vote for Joe Biden and the Democrats, which is the opposite of all those things. On Joe Rogan, someone said it's because Bill Maher has extreme TDS. Phaedra, not saying he doesn't, but listen to the podcast because it has nothing like everything. If you see everything through the lens of Trump, like they like Trump, they hate Trump, you're gonna not get where you need to get because it's way deeper than just hating Donald Trump. These people know what they're doing. It's the same way like a salesman wants to make a sale. These people know how to play the game. So it's way deeper than just liking or hating Trump. It's just what they do. On Joe Rogan's podcast, he said that the reason, although he knows that the Democrats are wrong about so much stuff, the reason he's still a Democrat and he still votes Democrat, Bill Maher said, is because of climate change. So despite being conservative in most ways of life, talking about how America used to be better and crime's too much and everything, he still wants to vote for Joe Biden and push Joe Biden because of the climate change agenda. And he can't really even explain it that well. He doesn't have a concept in his head where it's like, oh, we're going to spend all this money and tax all these people and we're going to change the planet's climate. Like he just says climate change. Yeah, Biden cares about it. Republicans don't care about it. So that's why I'm still a Democrat. I know he's smart enough to know that that's not like really a viable reason or it's not going to even work. Like Democrats aren't changing the climate. They're not doing enough to do any of that. And even if they did do enough, it's questionable of what they even think they're doing, especially because America is only one country. There's China, there's India. There's so many people in India and China. It's like America does not run the whole world. You can't control other people's output, but you could try, but it can't succeed. Anyway, I don't think it's a left-right thing. I don't think it's oh, Bill Maher just hates Trump. That's why he doesn't know anything. That's his role. You understand? There's people in media. They know that most Democrats can't get everybody on their side, so they deploy a Bill Maher to be the cool, funny, reasonable, conservative liberal that then gives you what you want to hear for 3 years, and then in the fourth year tries to reel you back into Joe Biden and be like, you know what, it's really not that bad. Come here. Same with Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart's been not on the news for years. I believe they deployed him this year to try to make Joe Biden popular. Bring back Jon Stewart, the guy that everybody likes and trusts in the media, to downplay border security. Everyone knows the border's crazy, but here's Jon Stewart, perhaps the most popular media figure in politics in the last 20 years. I would say he's more trusted and respected than anybody. Like, Jon Stewart's very well loved. He's getting a lot of views. Everybody likes it. And he's being subversive and extremely sneaky. Like, even I used to like Jon Stewart. Now I don't because I see what he's doing. He's going, yeah, the border's kind of like a problem, but the Republicans don't want to sign the border bill. The Republicans actually don't want a border. And it's like, let's be honest, because I don't even like Republicans at this point. They're mostly all fake. The bill doesn't say to build the wall or to fix the border. The bill says give $60 to $40 billion to Ukraine, give $10 to $20 billion to Israel, and then get a couple $1 billion for border security. That's not a border bill. That's a foreign aid, hold America for ransom and throw pennies at the border bill. Like it's not a real bill. Any objective journalist would say that, but he's not an objective journalist. He's a comedian kind of parading as an objective journalist that people like, trying to convince independents and people that are tired of Trump and Biden, rightfully so, trying to convince them that, the border isn't really that big of a problem. And although it is a problem, it isn't a problem. It's like covering up the problem and saying that Democrats are actually trying to get the border done and Republicans aren't. It's not true. I don't even like Republicans, and that's not true. Republicans suck. I'm embarrassed by pretty much almost everything they do because they are false opposition. But there's no planet where Democrats are trying to get the border built more than Republicans, and Republicans aren't, just don't want to do it. It's not. If the bill just said the border, Republicans would sign it. So with Bill Maher, this concept it's hard to explain because it almost sounds like you're being too negative. Like some people, I talked about it yesterday, like, oh, you don't want to give Chris Cuomo a second chance. Oh, everyone has to agree with you. It's not about that, but it's like, what do these people want? Like, what's their purpose of doing what they're doing? If they give you 3 years of what you want to hear and the funnel at the end is going to Joe Biden, It's the same as like a marketer. They put you through these marketing funnels. Like I've not been like I do my own marketing, so I understand the concept, but I've never worked for someone else where they made me do these little scams and stuff. But most companies, they train their employees to like basically tell you what you want to hear, whether it's a phone sale, a car sale, a house sale. It's like say this, and this, but there's always like a call to action. And like so that's what you have to figure out with everybody in media. It's like what's their call to action? If they sound just like Trump and they sound just like me and they sound just like your uncle at a barbecue, but then their call to action is to vote for Joe Biden, despite everything that comes out of their mouth is the opposite of that. That's what they're doing. You understand? It's like with certain people in politics as well, not just media, they're getting paid by APAC. That's a big one. Like, I've been talking about it on Twitter a little bit because everybody talks about it on Twitter now. But Dan Crenshaw, he says, oh, that person must be sold out to China. Who's Dan Crenshaw's number one financial contributor to his political regime or whatever he's doing? It's APAC, American Israel Political Action Committee, or whatever APAC stands for. It's like that's I guess they're American technically, but it's like a foreign policy, foreign, influence that every time like a politician, like some guy Lankford, he tweeted yesterday, he goes, I stand with Israel. Okay, that's nice. God bless you. You stand with Israel. Cool. Let me go to his, donations. Who's the number one donor to Lankford? Oh, it's APAC. They've given him hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when they say they stand with Israel and I say something about it, the opposition would say, oh, that's anti-Semitic. No, what you don't understand, they're not standing with Israel, the country. They're standing with the money they're getting from Israeli American lobbyists. Like that's why and they stand with Israel and then they pass a speech law. They stand with Israel and they infringe on the Constitution. They stand with Israel. It's like they're getting paid to do it. So politicians are basically what Bill Maher does, but people don't realize it. That's their role, is to suck up the money from APAC, suck up the money from the pharmaceutical industry, suck up the money from the weapons manufacturers, suck up the money from the big donors, the left-wing donors, the right-wing donors, whoever you want to, think is paying them. I mean, just look at the top 3-4 donors, 3-4 industries. It's pharmaceuticals, it's weapons, it's, different billionaires, etc. They take that money and then they convince you that they're just like you, because that's how they get away with it. You understand? I'm not trying to be a hater, but I said, like, I haven't said it in a while, but I used to say the Republican Party, they wear cowboy hats and like, sell out their people. They're like, okay, how do I pretend to be like people from Texas? How do I pretend to be like people from Oklahoma? You just put on a cowboy hat and then you like do the shuck and jive. And then everyone's like, oh, they're just like us. It's like, they're pretending to be just like you while they're taking money, while they're doing the opposite of what you want them to do, and nobody realizes it. To me, that's Bill Maher, that's Jon Stewart, and it's even a lot of people in conservative media. Let me give you another example of this. Ben Shapiro, who I do think is a good businessman. I want to give him compliments before I say what I think about him. I think he's a good businessman. I think Daily Wire is a very well-run company and they make a lot of money. I think Ben is, can be interesting on certain topics, and he's a good debater when the opposition is a fake Christian or some, 19-year-old liberal or Cenk Uyghur. But in reality, I think Ben Shapiro is highly deceptive. I think doesn't have America's best interest at heart. And I think, he clearly has other agendas that he's constantly wrong about major topics. I don't think Ben Shapiro's wrong because he's stupid. I just don't think he is who people think he is. So when he comes out yesterday and he makes a video and it says, I'm going to fundraise for Donald Trump. Most people look at that. Some people say, that's awesome. Ben Shapiro, he's finally learned his lesson. He's going to campaign for Trump. Trump's our guy, right? And that's why with Phaedra, I wasn't trying to be rude in the comments, but when you see everything through the lens of Trump, you're going to be wrong about so much stuff. Not saying that Trump is bad. I'm just saying it's deeper than just Trump or not Trump. So he says he's going to fundraise for Trump. Half the comment section, I'm not going to say half, but whatever. A large portion of the comment section is saying, yay, Ben's on our side now. Another portion of the comment section is saying, oh, Ben, like, the DeSantis supporters are like, oh, Ben's a phony. He's selling out to Trump. He has no principles. The truth is, in my view, this is my opinion because I didn't even watch the video. But at this point, I just feel like I don't even have to listen to these people. I already know what they're doing. Ben is probably lobbying Donald Trump. What does Ben want accomplished? he probably wants things for Israel. That seems to be the top of his priority. It's obvious. If you look at his Twitter feed or anything he does, the top of his priority is Israel. But you're not allowed to say that because it's a hate speech law being passed by Republicans who are being lobbied. So you can't even say that they're doing what everyone knows they're doing. So it's like he's not fundraising for Donald Trump because he likes Trump or hates Trump. When you give money to a politician, there's a reason. Pfizer doesn't like Donald Trump. They gave money to Donald Trump so they could control Donald Trump, which they did. Pfizer doesn't care about Joe Biden. Nobody cares about Joe Biden. They just pay him off and they pay the people around him off so then they can accomplish stuff. Pfizer is building a building for Kentucky Republicans. You think Pfizer is into construction? You think Pfizer really likes Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell? No, there's a loophole because they're not allowed to give direct money for whatever reason to the GOP in Kentucky. So instead of giving them money, they do a loophole and just build them new facilities. It's like bribery and corruption of the highest level, and it's bipartisan. So it's like, but Ben Shapiro's not raising money for Donald Trump because he cares about Donald Trump. The more money you give Donald Trump, the more stuff you get. Who's the major donor in the Republican Party over the last 6-7 years? Go look it up. What do you think they're giving hundreds of millions of dollars to Trump and the GOP for? It's not really that hard to figure this stuff out. The point that I'm getting is like people just don't see this because they see everything through the lens of like, I like Trump, he doesn't like Trump, or he does like Trump, so he must be good. North Dakota governor, what's his name? What's the name of the North Dakota governor? Whatever his name is, it doesn't even matter, but you could look it up. Governor Doug Burgum. He's become like a pseudo celebrity now on the right because he's hanging out with Trump, endorsing Trump. And they're like, wow, Doug Burgum seems like a stand-up guy. He took a huge donation from Bill Gates to get in office. Like, God knows what he's doing to North Dakota because I'm sure it's a beautiful state, but your governor is sold out to Bill Gates, like on record. So God knows what he's doing. But the point that I'm getting, if you see it through the lens of Trump or not Trump, you'll never know anything ever. Like, it doesn't matter if you like him or don't like him. That's not what's going on. Like, these people will raise money and do stuff for their agenda and then tell you that it's like that they're not doing it. Someone told me, like, some God bless the boomers, but some boomer on Instagram, he comments on my TikTok ban bill, how I said they're going to use it against our interests. And he goes, you don't know what you're talking about. You got to listen to Mark Levin. Mark Levin will set you straight. I know why Mark Levin wants to ban TikTok. Who do you think wants to buy TikTok, right? Who owns Facebook? Mark Zuckerberg, I think. I don't know if there's someone over Mark Zuckerberg, but Mark Zuckerberg. Like, who owns Google? Who's the owner of, YouTube owns Google? Like, there's only a few companies in America. TikTok is, besides like Rumble and the smaller ones, Gab and BitChute and stuff like that, all the major ones are owned by Americans. You could say liberals, you could say another group is involved, but you better watch your mouth because we don't do hate speech here. But anyway, it's like, so who wants to buy TikTok? If they're forced to sell, who's going to buy it? Do you know who's going to buy it? It's literally parody levels. Like, it's almost like if I would have said this as a joke, they would have said it's hate speech, but it's happening. Steve Mnuchin, who was the head of the Treasury under Donald Trump. So basically, like, the top banker in America under Trump, now the top banker, I would say, is Janet Yellen. She's not necessarily like a banker, but the Treasury controls the money of the U.S. The money of the U.S. is the Federal Reserve. So the head of the Federal Reserve and the head of the U.S. Treasury is pretty much the president of the money in America. So Steve Mnuchin wants to put together, he said this on CNBC or something, he's putting together a team to buy TikTok. Okay. Do you think that they're going to be Zionist? And I don't care if you are or aren't, or you like, or I'm that's not what this is about. I'm just speaking directly facts. It's like they're complaining, the Anti-Defamation League, the Jewish Federation, or whatever. It's like all these groups are complaining that there's too much anti-Semitism on TikTok. There's too much pro-Palestine content on TikTok. They're not doing enough to shut up the millennials. So when Steve Mnuchin buys it, do you think they're going to censor people who are critical of Zionism like they do in every aspect of America? Of course they are. And what does Mark Levin care about a lot? Zionism. So him wanting to ban TikTok and get it sold to Steve Mnuchin is not him setting me straight. It's just him not caring about the consequences of something because it justifies the means of what he's trying to do. and then they'll say it's hate speech and anti-Semitism to say that it's happening. It's not, it's the truth. And that word doesn't work anymore because they've called over half the planet that, and literally everybody just laughs at it now on Twitter. And Ben Shapiro gets ratioed by everyone all the time. These people are not popular. He might be well known, he might be famous. He's not popular. Everybody knows now. It's like it's just too obvious. Like it has nothing to do with being hateful, and it has nothing to do with liking another country or whatever. It's like, I'm American. So if someone tries to sell out the First Amendment, I don't like it. I don't care if they sell it out for Israel, for Palestine, for Muslims, for Hindus, you know what I'm saying? Saudi Arabia, China. Like, you don't beat communist China by becoming communist China. That's what we did during the pandemic. And this is the same, this is copy paste the same strategy. They said during the pandemic, there's a China virus. So we got to beat China by becoming communist China. And then we became a communist country. And then people like Dan Bongino, bless his soul, when I kind of talk shit a lot, it's not because I'm such a mean or bad person. It comes off rude, but I'm actually trying to help. Like, imagine if Dan Bongino, and I don't need the attention from him or anything, but like, imagine if Dan Bongino had me on the podcast during 2020, he probably wouldn't have got vaccinated because I would have, without telling him what to do, I would have explained the facts that he didn't pay attention to until after it was too late and he got vaccinated and said it was one of the biggest mistakes of his life. I'm not sure why, if he had problems, but God bless him either way. I think he does good work sometimes, but it's like, I don't try to be rude and insert myself into these discussions because I want anything for myself. Like, oh, I really need the attention. It's like, dude, these people don't know anything. Like, his whole concept of why he got vaccinated is because Trump pushed the vaccine and America pushed the vaccine, and the virus came from China, so America beats China. This is the flawed Zionist Republican logic that they are wrong about almost everything now. It's not because they're bad or they're so mean or I'm asking them to hate anyone. I'm not. It's just they don't think about anything properly at all, so they make poor decisions at best. So that's the point I'm trying to make, is like, with the lockdown, you can't beat the China virus by becoming communist China. Locking down American citizens doesn't beat a China virus, but that's how they got conservatives to play along with all these pharmaceutical lockdown stuff. Now you move to TikTok. TikTok is an app that has large ownership from communist China. Doing more research, I found out apparently Wall Street owns a lot of TikTok already. And I believe they forced TikTok to sell to Oracle or some sort of server. I can't remember exactly what happened, but they already had to sell a large portion of their stuff. And I'm not saying I'm a fan of communist China, but we're going to beat China by becoming China again. So now we're going to centralize all the power into the hands of the same people as they're passing hate speech laws to say that you can't say that it's happening, as all the false opposition on the Republican Party justifies it and says this is just to fight China. No, it's to get the app into the hands of the people they want it into the hands of so they could censor opposition of the war going on in Palestine. And it's not like a theory. It's all over the media. There's hundreds of groups complaining, saying this is why we want to shut down TikTok. This is why we want to force TikTok to buy it. And I don't think China's even going to do it. They'll probably pull out before they are forced to sell it to bankers in America. And like, you're an idiot in America, no offense, if you think that bankers in America really care about you. Like, think about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Are they doing any of those things right now? I still love America, but like, it doesn't take a degree in school. In fact, it probably makes you dumber. But it doesn't take a degree or some sort of expertise to just like use basic common sense. Look at every aspect of society. Does it seem like the people who control Facebook really care about you? The same ones who worked with the government to stop protests against lockdowns, the same ones who covered up for the pharmaceutical industry, the same ones that, Trump accurately pointed out that Zuckerberg spent a lot of money for election integrity or Democrat bolstering. You know what I'm saying? Like, what does election integrity mean to you? Like, I don't buy that his money went to make it more fair. I think he probably made it more rigged, just like Trump thinks he does. So the point that I'm trying to get to is like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or anybody to figure out that the people running the show in almost every aspect of life, they hate you. Like, they hate you, they hate your family, they hate God, they hate nature. It's so obvious. Like, just think about anything. Like, if you say that, if you question the pharmaceutical industry, they try to take all your money and ruin your life. Look at what they're doing to Aaron Rodgers right now. And we'll talk about it later with RFK, but like, they think he might be the vice president, so they're just shitting all over this guy's life. They're trying to say he's a Sandy Hook denier from like 12 years ago. if they had the information that he did do that, I don't even know if it's true. It's probably not. But even if he did do that, why are they waiting until now? They've known that since it's happened. It happened like 10 years ago. They're holding on to it until he runs for office. Then they try to destroy this guy's life. This is what happens when you question the pharmaceutical industry in America. If you transgender your kid, if you tell your 3-year-old kid that they're a girl, which in my opinion is just like borderline pedophilia and like child, abuse. If your kid is 18 and 15, even 16, I mean, I'm not saying it's still right, but like there's a little more of an argument to be made of like making your own decisions. But if you're putting your son in a dress at 2 years old or 3 years old, to me that's borderline pedophilia and like child abuse. Because like at 3 years, like you could barely talk, you could barely understand things. Like you know what I'm saying? Like the whole reason. Like, imagine if my mom or dad was just like, yeah, do whatever you want when you're like 4. It's like the reason you tell your kids what to do is because they don't know what they're doing until at least like 13 to like 17. You start to like get a clue of what's going on, a little bit. But, it's just unreal. But a basketball player can put a dress on a 3-year-old boy and parade them around as a girl, and none of these people care. They promote it and they stop you from criticizing it. And you think they just want TikTok to help you? And I'm not saying it's the same exact people, but it's like just look at all this stuff. So it's just ridiculous. But before I get to RFK, the whole Bill Maher thing, good people sometimes have a hard time realizing that deceptive people are out there. And I think that's the problem with a lot of conservatives is, they're not like super nice. Like they see it in the left and they can spot it in the left, but they can't spot it on their own side. They don't understand how diabolical some people are. So it's like I'll just give you an example. If a pharmaceutical CEO who made $1 billion in big pharma, who was never political and did the scammiest, scummiest, lowest tier, like the pharmaceutical industry is disgusting. But in general, it's like make $1 billion. Hey, I like Trump now, even though 6 months ago I wrote a book saying that Mike Pence was right and Trump, is a liar. And then like Republicans like he should be the vice president. It's like I'm sorry, but like Republicans are as dumb as liberals. Like I watch the Hodge twins. I know they're friends with Vivek, but it's like they're putting out polls like Vivek should be the vice president. A pharmaceutical CEO billionaire who was nowhere to be found from 2016 to 2020, who was making big pharma money all pandemic. Like that's the best we have on our side. No wonder the country's going to shit. The opposition's controlled. Like Bill Maher will tell you what you want to hear for 3 years. Like this stuff is not random. It's not like they're making mistakes. There's like a concerted effort. If you're really intelligent, you figure out how to play both sides. Like if you own the money supply, if you own media companies, if you own a sports league or anything, and you own oil, just like name any industry that makes a lot of money. Oil's always made a lot of money. Look at the Rockefellers, for example. It's like the whole health industry is based off of their money, like all the books and the schools. Once you deep dive into that, the Rockefellers kind of like sucked up a whole industry. So now when you hear, oh, you're against science, you're anti-science, you're going against the Rockefeller control of the health industry that they probably had for a long time. But when it comes to other stuff, you don't think they know that there's only 2 options for president besides RFK? We'll get into it. And people will be like, no, the left is bad, but like that guy's kind of on our side. They see it for what it is. Buy the left, buy the right. And if people aren't buying it, figure out a way to get people back there. You know what I'm saying? You can't just like make everybody act like Rachel Maddow. It wouldn't work. You got to have Rachel Maddows. You got to have Bill Mahers. You got to have Jon Stewart's, all of them, because you're not going to get the whole crowd to Joe Biden by just acting insane. They need their Jon Stewarts. They need their Bill Mahers. They need all of their like minions to, get different groups. A good example is like Lex Friedman. Everybody knows it. Like, where did he come from? Everybody, God bless him, but it's like he popped up out of nowhere, and literally within 1 month, he's in everyone's algorithm all the time. I never watched him. I never cared about him. And YouTube is promoting him and just forcing him into my algorithm. So I have to see his stuff. And he's talking to Mark Zuckerberg, and he's talking to the CEO of Pfizer. And it's like, people want the truth now, and people are tired of what's going on. So if you can get a guy there that will like control how far the discussion goes, you understand? It's like, I'll talk to the CEO of Pfizer, and like I'll grill him a little bit, but like I know where I won't go, and now everybody will be satisfied. I'm like, oh, okay, Zuckerberg got grilled, Pfizer got grilled. Now I feel good. Like finally, someone did some real journalism, and it's like, I don't know where he came from or what his intentions are, but I had no problem with Lex Friedman because, it's like whatever. Everyone doesn't have to do the same thing. But, he even reshared one of my things on Instagram when I gave him a compliment one time. But then he blocked me on Twitter when I pointed out his hypocrisy in the Ye interview. And the point that I made, which got hundreds of thousands of views and like thousands of retweets because it was true, is within 3 minutes of the Ye interview, he says, why are you saying Jewish? Why not just say individuals, right? That's what Lex Friedman said, which is a fair point, right? It's like, why are you like harping on that they're Jewish? Like, just say that they're individual people that just so happen to be Jewish. And the point that Lex Friedman was making, a fair point, was like, this group, like you're acting like this group exists and it doesn't exist. We're all just individuals and there is no thing that you're seeing, right? Fair point. I understand what he's saying. To a lot of people, that's true. But then in 2 minutes, he goes, well, he starts talking about being Jewish. And he goes, this is my group. You can't say that to me because this is my group. This is my history. This is our history. And we're a group. And we have this privilege. And we get this. And we get that. So this is our group. And we're different because we're this group. So it's like 3 minutes ago, there's no group. But now, so it's like, that's the whole thing. It's like, when something happens, it's like it doesn't exist, but when they can or Lex Friedman can use it for leverage or some sort of victim card or shield, then there is a group. So I was just pointing that out, and I said it very politely. I said, Lex, I really like you. I appreciate you. I think you're a good guy. You seem really nice. Do you see how that comes across as very like fake? Because it's not saying like if you're a Christian, you have to take blame for everything Christians are doing, or if you're Muslim or Jewish, that you have to take blame. Of course you don't. In my personal life, I know so many great, brilliant, honest, like very generous Jewish people. But these organizations and a lot of people in media, it's like saying like I'm Christian, so you can't say that the Vatican is Catholic, and there's no connection between the Pope and it's like there is a connection, but it's not all Catholics. But at the same time, there is a power control going on there, and it's totally okay to like name it because it's hard to talk without labeling things. It's like, what did that guy look like that just robbed that lady? Let's just say it was a white guy that was 7 foot tall and fat. Like what would you say? Would you be like, oh, it was just a guy? Well, what kind of guy? I'm not saying all fat 7 foot white guys are stealing things, but that guy that just ran away with the purse was 7 foot white, and then he was with this guy and this guy. It's like you got to use labels just to like explain things sometimes, and that's where I called out Tim Pool as well, because Tim Pool was saying, said the same thing to Kanye. He said, you shouldn't label that, you shouldn't just say Jewish because it comes across really bad. And even though I know what you're talking about, it's just messed up. And I'm like, fair, right? Okay. But then later in that episode, he did the same thing. He said white Antifa and white liberals. It's white, and it's like all white people, all white liberals, all white Antifa. Like all of Antifa is not white. All white people are not in Antifa. But I don't get offended by that. I know what he was talking about. He wasn't saying me, and he wasn't, but everyone knows there's like levels to like labeling stuff. It's like white people, you could say whatever you want about, nobody cares. Black people, it's going to get dicey. You're going to get in a lot of trouble. Jewish, you're going to get in even more trouble. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's everybody knows it, so people like Tim Pool, they have no problem being loose with white labels because there's no consequence to that because white people mostly don't care. There is no white organization. They've all been deemed racist. You can't look out for your own interests or else they say it's supremacy, but every other group does it and they work against other people's interests while saying they're not doing it, while saying it's hate speech to say that they're doing it. It's all exhausting, but it's like in general, the reason that Tim Pool and others, they say white, white, white all the time loosely is because it's normal to label stuff. The New York Giants are the New York Giants. They're not 11 guys on a football field. If you talk like that, nobody would know what you're talking about. Like you got to label things sometimes. Like even the other day I was talking to someone and they had mentioned that someone like walked somewhere and they wanted me to like know about it. And I was like, what ethnicity were they? They ended up being white, but like I'm not asking because I give a shit about like people and I hate or love a certain race. Like it's not about that. I like individuals on an individual basis. But like if you're describing someone to me and like I have to tell someone else, is he tall? Is he small? Like did he have hair? Was he bald? Was he black? Was he Asian? Like if he's Asian and there's not a lot of Asian people there, it's just obvious. Like you don't do it because you hate or are blaming everyone. It's just how you speak about everything. So, Tim Pool will be loose with certain labels, but not others. And then he'll act stupid. And same with Lex. He'll say that you should never, ever say that groups of these people exist. But then 2 minutes later, he literally does that when it's in his benefit, which is a very deceptive thing to do. And then when you notice it, they blacklist you, they block you. And I have like I don't really feel like naming names right now because it has nothing to do with Lex. God bless the guy. But one of my better friends in this industry is Roseanne Barr and her family. They've always been cool to me. I've been cool with them. I trust them. I like them. I stayed at their house last year to do the podcast, but and ate dinner with them, hung out with them. Like I really like Roseanne. I really trust Roseanne, and I really think that she is highly talented. And I just can't say enough good things about Roseanne. Someone that just so happened to be Jewish, contacted her and her family and said, "Don't have Anomaly on the podcast. He's an anti-Semite. Don't talk to him. He's hateful." They know me, so they know that it's not true. So not only did they not have me on, they had me on and just told me that exactly who told them that. You get what I'm saying? Like trying to blacklist me from a podcast. But luckily, I know her and I've known her for a long time, so she knows that that's not true. And she's a real one. I mean, people, you could like and dislike who you want. Someone says she's pro-Israel. That's fine. Like this is my point that I'm making. Like if you want to only have friends that agree with your foreign policy, that's on you. You know what I'm saying? Like if I meet a Ukrainian person that likes Ukraine and they're from Ukraine, that's fine. Like I don't want to be called pro Putin and a hate monger if I point out patterns and the fact that I like my taxpayer dollars goes to Ukraine. When it comes to Israel, my whole problem with the whole dynamic to all this stuff I'm talking about is the fact that they're passing anti-First Amendment hate speech laws. The media is constantly smearing everybody as anti-Semitic who talks about it. And also the fact that we send hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign aid to that country. And if you ever criticize it, you're anti-Semitic. It's not like I can't have a discussion about a complex issue in the Middle East. I don't dislike people because of their foreign policy necessarily. It's the dishonesty. Like when I talk to someone like Roseanne, for example, and I went on her podcast, right? I brought up why the press was calling me anti-Semitic and what I was talking about. And you know what she said? You could go watch the podcast. She didn't say, "Oh, it's so anti-Semitic if that you're against hate speech laws." She said, "Oh no, you're right about that." Like she's like, "That's yeah, like you're not hate. That's crazy." Or like it's like other people they'll be like, "Oh, that's so hateful." So if you can be reasonable and you could be honest and I could trust you on a personal level, then it's no big problem. But the point that I'm trying to make with all this is like if you can't like say there's like a black media group and their name is like Black Media Group and they're like, "We're black, we're doing things for black interests, we're doing things for black people, black, black, black." You're like, okay. And you're like, "So that black group over there," and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's racist." It's like the name of the group is Black Group and all they talk about is black interests. There's a lot of Jewish groups like that, but you can't talk about it. They just call it anti-Semitic. That's my huge problem. I mean, obviously, there's a even bigger problem in the Middle East now when it comes to the war and what's going on. But I'm speaking about it from an American point of view, and everyone's not going to agree on everything. So if someone disagrees with me on something, as long as they're reasonable about it and not trying to blacklist me from the media, then it is what it is. Like everyone's not going to agree on every foreign policy, but it's the blacklisting, it's the censoring, it's the silencing, it's the, you know, controlling things and then saying it's hate speech to say that anyone's controlling things. Like it's that type of deceptive nature that is the issue. It's not people on a personal basis. So without saying more, that's the thing with like Lex and Tim Pool is like they're just so disingenuous with that sort of topic. But I think that before I move on to the RFK thing, everybody's a little different, but there's certain people that their role, like Bill Maher, is to be the cool Democrat who's pretty conservative and pretty Republican in his thinking, but at the end of the day, he's always going to come back around election season and tell you to vote for a Democrat. Jon Stewart, he's resurfacing now to try to downplay the border and make Joe Biden look good, which is such an evil thing to do. It's like Jon Stewart could have rode off into the sunset and everybody likes him, but he comes back now and he wants to downplay the border. Like, Jon Stewart hates America. Jon Stewart hates Americans. Jon Stewart is being a deceptive snake, and he's basically trying to brainwash and trick moderates and good people into thinking that Republicans are crazy for talking about what's going on at the southern border. It's disgraceful. It's disgusting. I have a million times more respect for Elon Musk. I don't agree with everything Elon Musk says or does, but Elon Musk is like screaming every day about the border because he's like a genius level thinker, and he notices patterns and statistics and demographics, and he said more real stuff than most Republican influencers have. So say what you want about his other stuff, but like, he's being more authentic about the border stuff than these people. And to others, like, like, there certain people have a certain call to action that they want you to do. So, it's just best to pay attention to that stuff, because I do believe that a lot of people are using the funnel method. It's like, I'll say what you want to hear for 3 years, but on the fourth year, I'm going to send you that way, send you that way, send you that way. And once everybody figures it out, then it's easy to like move forward. It's not like a complicated thing, but everyone's just so quick to like be like, oh, maybe they didn't know what they were doing. It's like, they know what they're doing, trust me. And before I move on, there's a lot of money in pretending like you don't knowing certain things. Like, I just found an old rap of mine from like 10 years ago, 9 years ago. I was rapping in the car over a Fugees beat, and all the stuff that I'm telling you now, I was saying it in my lyrics 10 years ago. I was talking about how they wanted to own 90% of my music catalog. I was telling people, I wouldn't sell out. I said, I'm never going to sell out. I'm going to create a lane for myself. Why are they signing all these rappers that have horrible messages? They're not better than me. They're like all these concepts that I'm telling you right now today, I've been talking about for 10 years. I just didn't know as much as I know now. So I could see it happening, and I was complaining about it, or at least speaking about it. But now I get it completely. Like, the internet has made it so it's not hard to figure this stuff out. Like, it's like, oh, I know it's happening instinctually, but like, what is it? Who is it? It's all right there right now. So you got to understand that they're playing certain games, trying to get certain crowds without enlightening people, using certain like for example, Zionism, just while I'm talking about it now. They lobby both sides of politics. AIPAC, they brag about lobbying Trump, lobbying Obama, lobbying Pence, lobbying Kamala. Like, there's videos where they say we've pretty much lobbied every major figure in the last like 20 years. Like, I'm not being rude or hateful. It's like in their video. They showed a picture of like every famous politician from the last 20 years. And they're like, yeah, that's what we do. It doesn't matter left or right. That's what we do. So when you have money, whether it's Zionism, pharmaceuticals, whatever, like, they're dumping money into both sides, and then both sides do certain things. And then it's just like, that's what's going on. There is a lot of money interest. People aren't like out there like making mistakes or dumb. It's like you get money for being dumb. Like, if you don't have a certain foreign policy, if you get $180,000, now you have the foreign policy. If you're Donald Trump and you're skeptical of vaccines, but now Pfizer gives you $1 million and tells you that they're going to do this, this, and this for you, now all of a sudden you are pro-vaccine. Like, now all of a sudden you hire a pharmaceutical. Like, Trump's not out here making mistakes. Bill Maher's not out here making mistakes. He's not getting tricked by Joe Biden. This is just what everyone does. Like, it's the business model. And this is what I talked about yesterday. And it's just funny because I was going through some of my old songs from like 18 years ago, 10 years ago. And I was talking about this same stuff. And I said in the one song, I said, I'm trying to say, I won't ever sell out. I promise I can make this money being honest. When I made that song, I was broke, right? I had no money. I had nothing. I was living rent for rent, shitty apartments. And I said, I won't ever sell out. I promise I can make this money being honest. And there was no lane being honest. At the time, they didn't really want you there. Now there is the lane. So all the scammers, all the pyramid schemers, the MLMers, the pharmaceutical CEOs, and the liberals and the Chris Cuomos of the world, now they're all like, maybe I do like Trump. Maybe I can be authentic. Maybe me, Ben Shapiro, maybe I will endorse Donald Trump, or maybe I will raise money for them. you're out of your mind if you think any of these people are doing this because they just really like you and they want to tell the truth. It's like they're going to hashtag truth same way Apple hashtagged an apple, or someone GMO something just to sell it so they can own the intellectual property of it. This is what's going on. I've been doing entertainment stuff since 2008. I've had record label meetings. I've been on YouTube. It's work. What I wanted to do the whole time is working now because people are finally fed up with the lies. So all the liars are now rebranding as truthers, the same way Bill Maher is conservative on Joe Rogan's podcast and says make America great again, but now all of a sudden he thinks Joe Biden's doing a great job with America. You don't think Bill Maher knows the cities are falling apart? You don't think Bill Maher sees all the robberies and thefts going on, LA falling apart? Of course he does. He's just a liar, like all of them. And the more people figure this stuff out, the better the country will be. They're not making mistakes and kind of like you. They're pretending to be like you to make money, or pretending to not be like you to make money. Either way. Now I want to talk about RFK Jr. for president. I've gotten, like I said, like probably at least, I don't know. Can't even count. 30, 70, 40, 20. I'm not really even sure, but every day I feel like people are like, what do you think of RFK? I get it. You're skeptical of both parts. What do you think of RFK? RFK is the truth, right? RFK is the real deal. Personally, as somebody who likes RFK, I don't think RFK is the real deal. I don't care about his presidential campaign, and I won't be voting for him. And here's why. Let me first start with compliments to RFK because he is very likable and he's done a lot of really interesting things that I appreciate. He's definitely been early on the pharmaceutical scams. He's told the truth about them. He's probably the best, even though his voice is a little wild, because of his problem. He's one of the best, if not the best, communicators to explain the liability shields. He explained it to me. I'm so grateful that someone showed me RFK's video before the pandemic. He might have saved me. Like I'm really grateful. I'm not just here to like shit on the guy or anything, because I like him as a person. I like him as a American. I think he's like been a net positive, and I'm so grateful that RFK was able to explain liability shields and how the pharmaceutical industry works, because that is how I knew that in 2020, and I probably helped a lot of people through the knowledge that I heard through him. The way he talks about it, I think everybody should listen to him talk about liability shields and learn how to be a good communicator, because you don't have to act crazy. You don't have to like make it seem so nuts. Like, when I'm not trying to pick on Alex Jones because he's obviously been successful in his own right, but when Alex Jones talks about the vaccine, he's just like manic about it. Like he'll be like, it's a bioweapon. Oh, Trump, I hate you. I love you. I hate you. I love you. It's great. It's the greatest thing going on to Trump. He replaced it with sugar water. It's sugar water. Patriots. No, Trump gave you a different vaccine. He's tricking Bill Gates. Like, dude, Alex is full of shit. Like, I'm sorry, but it's like he said 20 different things about the vaccine. He said it's like going to do all this crazy negative stuff. And then he said Trump replaced it with like basically sugar water to beat the Gates agenda. Dude, Alex talks out his ass. And it's like, yeah, he's probably woken a lot of people up, but like he's probably also confused a lot of people because he said 20 different things on the same topic. When it comes to RFK, he's been consistent. He just explains the liability shields. Like he's like, after the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act came out, any childhood vaccine, they don't have liability for side effects, injuries, and death. So once that happened, the schedule rose because it's like the ultimate business model. Like imagine you have a business model now where nobody can complain about a product if it hurts their kid, and then the media will say it's not happening, or they'll take down your video if you even question it. So like the way that RFK was able to explain that, he's brilliant. He's a brilliant communicator, and he's done a lot of good. He's held Monsanto accountable. He talks about the FDA. To be honest, as a human being like that talks, I'd rather listen to him than Trump or Biden. Biden, there's no value. Trump is funny, but Trump says the same things on loop. And I personally, as somebody that used to really like Trump, I think there's a major difference between 2024 Trump and 2016 to 2019 Trump. If you look at Trump's Twitter from 2015 to 2019, goldmine. The guy was on fire. Like it's like Steph Curry in the 4 years where he's hitting every 3-pointer. Trump was killing it. He's not that guy now. Like I'm not saying he's like a new clone or anything, but it's just like he's old, he's corrupt, He says the same things on Luke. He sounds like a grandpa who's stuck on war stories. Like, he wasn't always this way. Trump actually did say a lot of real stuff from 2015 to 2019. Now he's just a little slower, a little more like, you know, concerned with himself, and a lot less willing to like talk about everything. He talks about the same things on loop. With that being said, you know, I just think RFK makes a lot of sense on topics that Trump won't talk about. Trump doesn't talk about the food quality, like the FDA. Trump is like an FDA shill. He's like, I made him go faster. I rushed the vaccine. That's demonic. You deserve to, you deserve to be shunned from society for that. Like, I think Trump's a demon. Like, he's bragging about rushing the FDA to put out a vaccine faster. That would be like bragging to push the FDA to push like toxic cereal ingredients. You're like, the FDA didn't want these Lucky Charms to come out with these food dyes that are killing your kids. So, I rushed them to push it out even faster. Like, okay, so you're a demon like that, so it's like, on a personal level, I get why people want to vote for RFK, because like Trump is an idiot when it comes to all these topics that are pretty much the most important topics in America. And, RFK talks about him. Trump doesn't know what he's talking about or just doesn't care. With that being said, you know, two, I'll say three things maybe, but like I'll start with this one. I was personally excited about the RFK campaign when two things I thought were possible. One, I thought he was going to run in the Democratic Party. It's not because I like the Democratic Party. It's just you can't win. Like, he's not going to win this election. I think he's at like a 3% chance, 2% chance. He's not going to win. Like, running, if he were to run after Trump leaves or something, like, he might have a chance, but it's just kind of like DeSantis and Trump. Whether you wanted DeSantis to beat Trump, he didn't. So like, wanting him to win doesn't matter. I'm not saying he wouldn't have done a better job. He might have done a better job than Trump, but it's one of these things where like, once you saw the Alvin Bragg arrest and how Trump supporters were acting and they didn't want DeSantis, and to be quite honest, DeSantis did not run an impressive campaign. He kind of just like hid to himself and tried to play it safe. You can't beat Trump by playing it safe. Like, he couldn't really figure out his branding, but like, it doesn't matter how much more you want DeSantis to beat Trump. It didn't happen. It's not happening. So it doesn't exist. Let me use Shiva for an example real quick, because people always ask about him. And on a personal level, I like Shiva. Podcast, I like talking to Shiva. I trust Shiva more than I trust most people in this industry, in the sense of, I do think he's done a net positive, and he was really early on the COVID pandemic, and I appreciate Shiva. Have nothing negative to say about the guy. With that being said, he's not running a real presidential campaign. He'd probably get mad if I said this, because and I like that he'd get mad that I said this. Shiva has a lot of energy. He's a wild guy, and I like how wild he is. I think he's a good American, and I think he means well. But he's not running a serious presidential campaign. He's not even going to get 1 or 2% of the vote. So why? Like, what is the motive to run if you're not going to win because you're not running a real campaign? I don't understand it. With RFK, if you run in the Democratic Party and somehow win, you could beat Trump. But running against Trump versus Biden in the 2024 election, RFK is not going to win. So that's why I'm wondering, like, why is he running? Like, maybe it's for a good cause, but like, why run independent after you really like? Because at first he said, I'm going to try to beat Biden and be the Democratic nominee. If you do that, you can be the president. You run independent versus Trump and Biden, you can't win. Like, so what's your motive? Are you trying to take votes away from Biden? Cool. Are you trying to take votes away from Trump? Suspect. Are you trying to just raise awareness to the message, of the pharmaceutical industry? Righteous. I just don't know what. Are you trying to get exposure for a future run? Interesting. I don't buy that he's running for president independent to win, because he's not going to win. With that being said, as a admirer of RFK in a not gay way, no, I'm just kidding. Like I said, I was gonna say I was trying to think of a word, admirer. It's like, it sounded kind of gay, that. But anyway, it's like, as an admirer, it's like, I didn't want to say fan. I'm not like a fan, but like, as a appreciator, as an appreciator of RFK, I was pumped about his campaign until they called him anti-Semitic for saying something about COVID and how it affects different races personally. Is it true what he said? I think he mentioned Jewish in it racially. I don't even know if he was right or wrong, because I don't know if I believe that at all, to be honest. I don't even agree with him. But he wasn't being anti-Semitic. he was reading a research paper. You know what I'm saying? He didn't make that up. Like there's research papers that study the differences of certain diseases with different ethnicities. Ashkenazi, you know what I'm saying? German, Irish, sub-Saharan like they get real specific when they study, sub-Saharan Africa. Like when they do demographics, they don't just say black, white. They start going deeper and trying to study if certain things impact certain people differently. And I don't know that I believe that with this virus or whatever, but it's not that crazy to think about, because like, does a black person and a white person that's pale, can they take the same amount of sunlight? No. A guy that's pale is going to burn. But if you're super black, you're probably not going to burn. And if you're like Spanish or Italian, you have different thresholds to the sun. It's not racist. This is why talking about race isn't racism in most ways. Like obviously in some ways it's like super messed up if you're just a dickhead and you're an evil person. But like this is why I don't use the word racist anymore, because it's like it's actually more racist to not separate races in some ways. I'm not talking about like every facet of society. I'm just saying like imagine telling like a group of kids like you're all exactly the same, and then they go out in the sun and the white kid's crying and burnt and getting hurt, and they're like, why did I get hurt? It's like, well, because you're not the same. I thought I was the same. Well, like, yeah, you're the same. Like, we respect you the same, we love you the same, but like you have different physical characteristics which that you need different regimens. Like people, depending what type of hair you have, depending what type of skin you have, depending your genetics, like it's even deeper than just race. But it's like everyone is different and unique, and you're all beautiful flowers or whatever. But it's like, telling everyone everything's the same is actually wrong, and it's dangerous. One example I've used in the past, it's been a while. During the pandemic, obviously everyone was suffering from being on a lockdown, in my view, physically, but especially if you like, I think black people probably were disproportionately affected on average. I'm not saying everybody and no white people were affected, but on average, I think that black people probably did suffer during the pandemic more than a lot of white families on average, not because of racism, but just because of where they're located. It's like if you're black in the winter and they're not letting you exercise or get out or even really get in the sunlight, like if you're The Rock and you have a jacuzzi, it's easy to go outside. Even if you're in rural America, it's easier to go outside. And I'm not saying that all people live here, but it's just the truth. Like I've been to Jamaica, Queens. I've been to Brooklyn, like Bed-Stuy. There's a lot of apartments on top of each other, and it's not safe to go outside like all the time, especially during the lockdown. It probably wasn't. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you live in these neighborhoods and they're telling you to lock down for your health, they might be destroying your health. And if you're black in New York, you might need more sun than New York sometimes provides. It's like being super white and then you move to Florida and you're just burned all the time. It doesn't mean you can't live there, but everyone has a different regimen. There's a reason Spanish people like to be in the sun more. I think ethnically it just like flows with their skin type, and it feels good. And also you don't burn as easily. Like it does, these are like obvious things that they just are, oh, everybody needs to lock down. What about the hood? Like the hood's going to lock down. Like, dude, they probably suffered so bad. So did rural families. I'm just saying. So when it comes to what RFK said, huge tangent, but definitely worth it. It's not anti-Semitic to talk about if a virus affects different ethnicities different and reference a research paper. RFK doesn't have a hateful bone in his body for racists. I don't even think like anybody that they say that's racist is that racist, but like RFK is the furthest thing from like a racist. He seems like a super nice guy, super like open-minded, like total nice guy. So they call him anti-Semitic, right? I'm getting somewhere, I promise. And then he starts just doing this weird apology tour where he just is like, I stand with Israel, I'm with you. And I'm like, all right, well, it's like, okay, like, so you're going to apologize that quickly for doing nothing and go on like a week apology tour and surround yourself by people? It's like, at that point, I'm just like, oh. And then I heard him like debate Jimmy Dore and stuff on the Israel-Palestine stuff. And, it goes against like his thought process there goes against, I think, that his logic on every other foreign war. Like he talks about Ukraine and Russia so honestly and talks about every angle, but with Israel, he just talks like everyone else. So it's like, okay, he's really not that different. You know what I'm saying? Like, do I think RFK is going to get in as president and not pass a speech law? he'll probably pass the same speech laws that Trump and DeSantis passed. So at that point, it's like if he's willing to cave to that, then I don't. It's like, what's the point of even running? Like, the whole point of running as an independent is like you can't be controlled and you can't be reined in, and you're willing to call everyone out. But the second they call you a word, you go on an apology tour for 3 weeks. It's like, okay, so you're just like everybody else. You'll either take the money or you'll let them shame you into doing something. And it's like, it's just ridiculous. It's like with Don Lemon made a funny joke recently where he was like, Elon Musk like went on an apology tour, had to go to Auschwitz and like meet with Ben Shapiro or whatever. Like Don Lemon said that. I don't know if he meant to be funny, but I laughed because it's like, dude, Elon Musk is the richest person in the world. He's one of the most famous people in the world. He's one of the most successful people in the world. He owns a rocket company that works with the government. He owns Tesla. He bought a social media company. And when he said that there were Jewish groups hating on white people or something, like he didn't say everybody, he just said that there's certain Jewish groups that Elon Musk noticed. This is what he said, that he noticed were like pushing anti-white stuff. That's what he tweeted. I couldn't believe when he tweeted that. I was like, damn, Elon going hard in the paint. But as soon as he tweeted that, next thing you know, he's in Auschwitz with Ben Shapiro and a bunch of like Jewish leaders. And it's like, I'm not trying to be rude or hateful. It's just like the richest man in the world can't even tweet that he noticed a group was hating on another racial group because if he would have said it the other way, then nobody would have cared. But, it's like he has to go on an apology tour now. He has to meet with Ben Shapiro. Why would Ben Shapiro be like the ringleader of like telling Elon Musk, like, like people don't notice, like people don't notice what's going on. How much more obvious could it possibly get? Like, at this point, if you can't figure it out, you're too dumb to like figure anything out. That like it couldn't possibly be more obvious. So it's like, I'm not even like mad at Elon for meeting with people and stuff, but it's like if he then changes his whole company, it's like, all right, dude, like the whole point of owning X is to allow the First Amendment to exist. And if you can't do that, then who cares? Like, you're just like everybody else. And it makes you wonder, like, how hard is it to do anything? Because like I know on my level how hard it, like I know who's tried to ruin my career the most. And the truth is it's Zionists. It's people behind the scenes telling people not to talk to me because I talk about this stuff. It's media organizations. They don't talk about anything I've ever done, any of my accomplishments, a billion views, and they don't even talk about any other edgy stuff I talk about. It's just Anomaly's anti-Semitic because he believes that the First Amendment should exist. Like that's what they harass everybody all the time. And either either you deal with it, or I guess you just cave and become like an apologist or something. But I'll apologize when I'm wrong. I'm not going to apologize when I'm right. It's just like obnoxious. But anyway, when it comes to hold on, I was making a point with Elon and X. I don't remember, but yeah, with RFK, hopefully if it was that important, I'll figure it out again. With RFK, it's just like I'm just not interested in this campaign anymore. One, he's gone on the apology tour. Two, he's proving that he's just like everybody else. Three, he's running as an independent when he's not going to win, so it doesn't even matter. It's like why run to just apologize and not run in a party and then lose? Like, is it to make money? Is it to get a book deal? Like, is it to amplify your message, which is important, which would be great because Trump and Biden definitely suck. So it's like, it's not like I'm mad at him. I'm just trying to like figure out why, because everyone will be like, he really wants to win. Dude, people are too naive. Like when people run in California and they're like polling 1%, a lot of my friends will like rally behind that person and be like, they're going to be governor. And I'm like, listen, I'm not saying they're bad people. They're not going to be governor. Just like, I'm very analytical. It's like if you had like one basketball player play five, and then you're like, oh, that one guy is going to beat five professionals. And you're like, he's not. It doesn't mean he's like not good at basketball, but you can't win 5-1. This is like a race that you enter when you're polling at 1%. Like you got to have a strategy to win. Like you got to figure out how they're doing it and at least have a counter to it. You can't just say I'm running and then everyone plays make believe for 8 months. A lot of people, in my view, they just want attention and money. Like say you're a businessman. I think Vivek did this, and I've seen another person do this in California. You're a businessman, right? You have a lot of money. You have a lot of power. you're definitely not like hated or anything, but like no one cares about you. You're not like that important. You don't go to sports games. Nobody wants to interview you. Like before Vivek ran as a Republican, he had like 30 views. He was pushed artificially by the media for years before he became famous. He was pushed by Jim Cramer, his failed company where he bought a failed drug and sold it as if it might work or whatever. Like Vivek was pushed in the media. They tried to make him famous as like the child genius, like 20-year-old pharmaceutical CEO is going to save the world. They tried so hard, the mainstream media, to make Vivek famous, and it never worked. So you run as a Republican. Now you get all this attention. You have no chance of winning, but it doesn't matter. You just secured yourself a career. It's the same thing with like California politics. A lot of these Republicans run because it's like a career. It's like, I have this business, but nobody gives a shit about me. Women don't give me attention. I'm not important. And then it's like, oh, you run for governor, even though you can't win. You're doing speeches. People come up and they shake your hand and they go, thank you so much. You're going to save California. How is the guy going to save California? He just got 1% of the vote. This is why the guys run, saying they run to get attention, money, book deals, and women throwing themselves at them. Cause it's like, like everybody acts like you're a celebrity for 7 months, and then you fade off into obscurity once people realize that you never had a chance anyway. It's like the most self-serving thing. But then also when it comes to some, they can parlay it into a career. RFK doesn't need that stuff. So I'm just wondering like why he's running, because I just don't see him as a viable option. I appreciate what he's done to the pharmaceutical industry and all that. I just, I'm just like, it's just annoying when everybody's exactly the same and everybody caves and everybody passes speech laws and everybody like, it's like, what's the point? They're all just like, I'm just not interested in people that can't take a stand and say anything like authentic. So, I'm going to read a few comments. I had something good to say before, but it's all good. Someone said women throwing themselves. I'm going to run now. That chased you away. I'm not saying everybody does that. I'm just talking about in an election, you can't win. You understand? Like, okay, let me give you a good analogy. I'm good at basketball, right? I think I'm very good. I'm so confident, and honestly, it's probably false confidence in this. I'll just be honest, because I'm not like a professional basketball player. But I believe that, like, I've played with my friend who is professional. I don't think I could be good, and I don't think like I would, but I do think to some extent that I'm able. If it were 5-on-5 and it was all professionals, I do think that I would be able to just do okay. I don't think I'd be the best person. I'd probably be the worst person on the court, but I think I could like have a chance of winning a game as long as they weren't like the best professionals, but just being one of the four. I can't beat a professional team by myself. I can't 5-on-1 the Lakers versus Anomaly. I have a 0% chance. So if I went into a 5-on-5 where I'm playing with four professionals and I say, I think I could win, you could call me crazy, but there's a chance that I could like not do terrible as long as they only play me 10 minutes in the game, not the whole game. If I go against the Lakers 5-1 and it's just me and I say I could beat the Lakers by myself, you should laugh at me. You should be like, that's ridiculous. You're an idiot. That's what people do in politics. I'm not saying RFK is that bad, but like there are a lot of people where it's like 99.999% of the time they have no like running against Nancy Pelosi or something. It's like, I get why people are doing it. I'm not saying they're horrible, but it's like, there's no, if RFK wants to win, he could be the president in a couple of years, run as the Democrat nominee, win. And then it's not like he's super anti-establishment. He knows no Democrats. He's not like that big of an outsider, but I'm sure they wouldn't want him to win, just like they don't want Trump to win or whatever. But you just can't win as an independent. So it's like, I just don't know what people are doing. Cause like, I'm just so strategic when I think about stuff where I'm like, nah, that's not going to work. And they're like, oh, you just don't want to believe. And it's like, you need this, you need that. Like to win a campaign, you got to really think about what you're doing. Like Vivek never had a chance. Doug Burgum never had a chance. Why is Doug Burgum running for president? You think he thinks he could win? You understand what I'm saying? Like Doug Burgum thought he could win. Chris Christie thought he could win. Mike Pence thought he could win. Why are these people running? Like they don't know that they have no chance. I just don't. I'm trying to like just figure out what are their intentions? It's probably to get on a national stage and elevate your brand and try to use that attention to parlay into a different career. That's just what it is. So with RFK, I believe he's doing that. Like the people that come to me and say RFK is going to win or he's the best president, he's not a real candidate. It's just like I don't know. I don't know what his intentions are. I just don't really care, to be honest. And I'm not giving him any attention, like, because it's just like I'll retweet something if I see him say something good, but I'm not like I don't I'm over these politicians that are sold out to foreign countries. I'll just say it. I'm over that. Like Dan Crenshaw, I'm over it. Mark Levin, over it. Like I get what they're doing and they say it's hate speech to say what they're doing. Dan Crenshaw, maybe you could say it because he's not Jewish. I don't think he's like Christian or Catholic or whatever he is. I don't know what he is, but it's like his biggest donor is a foreign lobby. And then he'll run around saying he's fighting a foreign country when he's working for a foreign country. And everybody knows it. It's like there's a reason that he's so inconsistent with all of his views. It's because he's sold out, just like they all are. So it's like I don't need a fake independent or a fake outsider to just do what everyone on the inside does. Like we already had Trump. It's like if we want a fake insider, I'll just vote for Trump. If I want a fake insider that's sort of an outsider, but it's really just an insider that I think could win and do a little bit better, then Trump is everybody's guy for the next election. RFK has no chance. So it's like, go wait 4 years and be the fake insider outsider. Like what's the point? And a lot is at stake in this election, but you really wonder like who Trump's even going to hire. His former treasurer is trying to basically buy TikTok and force them to buy it. His former transportation secretary was Mitch McConnell's wife. Trump hired Mike Pompeo for Secretary of State, former CIA guy, Christopher Wray at FBI, FDA, Scott Gottlieb, HHS, a pharmaceutical lobbyist named Alex Azar. Like Trump's cabinet was literally the swamp. I feel dumb for not figuring this out earlier because I was in like the hopium mode of like, yo, I didn't believe the Q stuff, but I was like, I'll give Trump some time, be patient. Maybe he's playing in and out, but it's like, you can't beat the swamp by hiring them. So I hope if Trump wins, because he has a better chance than RFK, people like I hope RFK's in Trump's cabinet. I hope he's the head of the FDA. That would be a good escalation. But does anyone care? Like, I feel like no one cares, or I'm not sure. It's hard to like read what everyone thinks about it, but that's where, it's Trump versus Biden. In many ways, I obviously hope Trump wins. I think he'll do he almost has to do more this time. Like he'll look like an idiot if he doesn't. If Biden wins, God knows what's going to happen, but everybody knows he's full of shit. I don't know. I'm just getting to the point where it's like the difference is not as the gap is not as huge as they're saying it is. So it's hard for me to even really care that much anymore. Because it's like if Trump's better at the economy than Biden, but he's only better at the economy for 3 years, but he's really playing ball with these people. So in year 4, he implodes it and plays stupid. Is the economy even really getting better? Like the economy's good now, but it's not really good. It's like the stocks are up, which is nice. Other like the wages are up or whatever they claim, but like I can't speak for everybody. For me, I'm not making more than I was 2 years ago. Everything costs more and everything's getting shittier. I don't mind paying more and making less if everything's getting better, but everything's not getting better. Like the quality of everything's getting worse and nobody's like good at their job anymore. I'm not saying in any category, but like, just like everything's not better than it was. So I don't need Bill Maher to gaslight me into thinking like Biden's doing a good job. He's not. I want Trump to win, but I want people to like stop babying him. Because if Trump wins and everybody babies him and kisses his ass, it's like it's just going to be an annoying fake 4 years. And then there's probably going to be some huge crisis that Trump pretends like he's not a part of. And then he is a part of it. Let me give you one example. And I'm not making a theory that Trump was part of it, although this was a sketchy thing, but I'm not blaming Trump. I'm just saying the Vegas shooting was highly sketchy. Stephen Paddock, the guns, people getting just like murdered. And like, that was crazy. Do you guys remember that? The Vegas shooting? I'm not going to create a theory on this. There's enough out there. And I don't know what to believe about it, but I just don't believe the mainstream narrative personally. Trump used that tragedy to infringe on the Second Amendment. After that, Trump said, we need to ban bump stocks because he used bump stocks. How is Trump any different than a liberal? In fact, In some cases, he's worse because if Obama tried to do it, he probably wouldn't get away with it. Obama didn't do that. Trump did. So it's like, he's only better until he's not. And then everybody just thinks he got tricked. What if he's just the other side of the coin and they play off each other and they use him? He infringed on the First Amendment with his anti-Semitism executive order. He infringed on the Second Amendment with his bump stock laws. And with every tragedy came a Trump counter. Oh, tragedy, Second Amendment infringed on. Tragedy, First Amendment infringed on. Oh, tragedy, I'll print trillions of dollars. Tragedy, oh, I'll sell vaccines. How is he really, like, people don't want to think this way, but it's like, I hope he wins because I do think he's better than Biden, and the chances of him being better are like higher than they are with Biden. But if Americans and conservatives and Trump supporters and patriots stop babying him, like, we could actually crush, like, because there's a lot of bad people around him, but there's some cool people around Trump too. It's just like he's real good at like finessing it. So I just hope people are paying attention because he definitely has potential. Someone said Trump instigated the January 6th incident. I mean, I don't think Trump should be charged. I don't think he did a crime. And I think what they're doing to Trump over January 6th is insane. But just like him infringing on bump stocks after Vegas, I personally just don't believe these things are random anymore. I'm not saying it's staged, but I'm just saying tragedies are used to do certain things. And if you take your emotion or your loyalty or to Trump away from it, it's not that hard. It's like the country locks down, they sell vaccines, he prints the money, he does everything the swamp wants. Election goes weird. Trump summons all his supporters to the Capitol and basically sets them up. I don't think Trump should be charged. I don't think he's guilty of anything, but he's just guilty of being a shitty leader, and selling his own supporters out to the pharmaceutical industry, foreign countries, and the Capitol Police. Like, it's like, what's the point of getting everyone to go to the Capitol? Like, the whole reason I didn't go is because I don't believe any of these people. Like, Dan Bongino got the vaccine because he believes America's fighting China. I didn't get the vaccine because I'm smarter than that. I didn't go to the Capitol because I'm smarter than that. Everybody always tries to shit on me like, oh, anomalies this, anomalies that. Yeah, I'm smarter than all these people. That's why I don't fall for these stupid Fed traps. Like, it's like, I'm not following a guy selling Moderna vaccines to a Capitol to yell at Mike Pence. I'm not going to say I hate, but I've always known Mike Pence was a puppet. But how is he going to overturn the election? People still think he made this massive mistake. I'll say it, even though I like Trump better than Pence. Pence couldn't do anything. If he would have tried to send the electorates back, they probably would have thrown him in prison. You can't change the results of an election, even if that happened. The vice president doesn't have the power to do that. They only maybe sort of have power to send electorates back to people who already sent them in. And those people couldn't have changed them or they would have got arrested too. It's like the whole narrative was like fake, but that's why they make you angry and emotional. I was annoyed at the lockdown. I was annoyed at what Democrats were doing. And to be quite honest, I was annoyed at the election. But just because you're annoyed doesn't mean you could just throw a fit. Like, that's what the Capitol was. It was like, follow the vaccine salesman, the great communist vaccine salesman to the Capitol, the great controlled op Moderna salesman and Pfizer salesman. Follow him to the Capitol, listen to him yell about Mike Pence, and then, just like get pissed off or take selfies. I don't even think that much happened at the Capitol. I'm just saying, like, it's like the chances of Trump doing that by mistake and on purpose, in my opinion, are like 50-50. Like, part of me thinks that he doesn't know what he's doing. Part of me thinks that that's the perfect setup for the uniparty. Set your supporters up, get them all arrested. Now all the organizers are in prison. Now the mandates come out. Just look at how he acted. And I would even go as far as to say 75% Trump is in on it, okay? Because after that happened, so many organizers that were against mandates got arrested because they like Trump too much, okay? So now they're arrested. They're getting charged in court. So now they can't protest the mandates, which we needed because the Biden administration was trying to mandate it. When Biden was mandating it, was Trump out there talking about the mandates? No, Trump Tower played along with the mandates. Trump went on Maria Bartiromo and downplayed the mandates and basically just said he's the father of the vaccine. He spent very little energy pushing against the mandates and most of his energy selling the vaccine. Sarah Huckabee Sanders said to take the Trump vaccine. It's controlled opposition. It's like the chances of him not knowing what he's doing are way smaller than the fact that he just set everybody up and nobody wants to believe it. So it's like, the setups are just going to keep coming. if he really cared, you could see the actions over the next 2 years. From what I remember, he barely talked about the January 6th prisoners until Ye made a video with Nick Fuentes when he was like running for president or whatever. And he literally said on video, I don't remember if it was Nick Fuentes or Ye, but they put out some Twitter video and they were like, Trump barely even talks about the January 6th prisoners. How come he never even helps them or talks about them? And then after one of them said that in a video, Trump, like a day later, came out and started talking about the January Sixers after not talking about them for a year. It's like he's the most selfish con man, but nobody seems to notice or care. It's crazy to me. So it's like I'm not trying to argue with people or be hateful or it's like I do want Trump to win, but I like the level that I really care is so low at this point. Because I don't know if he's a good person who's just a bad leader, or I just don't know if he's like the setup, the guy that just constantly gets Patriots set up for the other side. Because like, it's hard for the left to set you up. Like they need your leader to like set you up, like that, it could be that. And then with RFK, it's like, I don't trust the guy at all anymore. It's like he went on this little apology tour. He showed he's just like everyone else. He showed he'll kiss the ring and sell out. There's nothing I need to like. I appreciate him. I'm grateful for the knowledge, but like, I'm not following false leaders. And this is just, a word of advice to everybody, just as a friend. You can get mad at me. You can vote for Trump. I don't care. Vote for him. Pay attention, please. For the sake of it, you know how many fathers are rotting in prison right now because they cared about Trump more than their family. And it's like they thought they cared about their family. They thought they were doing it for the best of the country, but it never was. And that's why my content, it's like if Dan Bongino would have had a conversation with me in 2020, he wouldn't have got the vaccine. If some of these people would have listened to me in 2020, they wouldn't have been there at January 6th. But now they are, and their kids have to grow up without a father. In some cases, their kids have to grow up without a mother. And it's sad because I know probably most, if not all, of the January 6th prisoners that are rotting in prison, they're probably great people who just messed up and mean well and got tricked into thinking that they were doing something for the country. And it's like, it's really fucked up. So excuse my language, but it's not like I hate people or I hate anything. It's like I'm just disgusted that so many people, like now a bunch of good conservative kids have to grow up without a father because their father fell for the great vaccine, deception. The father of the vaccine lured them to the Capitol where they thought that Mike Pence was going to do something or even had the option to do something. It's like it's not to say like Mike Pence sucks, but there's nothing he could have done. Like that's a total stupid narrative. And that's why I don't follow any of these people anymore. I don't follow leaders dumber than me. I don't listen to people dumber than me. I don't listen to PBD podcasts because it's a dumber conversation than I would ever have. Why would I listen to people talk about conservatism in a dumber way than me and then listen to the fake opposition, pharmaceutical, foreign war, television corporation, Chris Cuomo, Democrat, pretend to be opposition and thinking he's having an awakening? It's like there's no value for me there, so I don't listen. I don't follow a vaccine salesman to the Capitol. I don't, it's like these are things where it's like I just don't follow leaders that are faker and dumber than me. So there's nothing for me in RFK, Trump, or Biden. I might be inspired to vote for Trump. I might be inspired to vote for the local election. To be quite honest, I didn't go vote in the primaries. I mean, it wasn't that important, but I wasn't inspired to. It's like I felt better working on stuff that I had to do for an hour than going to the booth to vote in some stupid primary that doesn't matter. So it's like, hopefully I vote in November. Hopefully I vote for Trump and Republicans, at least locally, but we'll see. Right now I'm wildly uninspired, but things change and hopefully I can figure out who's good locally and vote for them, because that would be the smart thing to do. It's just RFK, Trump, and Biden for me. Zero inspiration from any of them at this point, but I do think Trump has a chance of winning. RFK has no chance, and we'll see. Someone said, Anomaly, you listen to Jesse Lee Peterson. I haven't listened to him in years, but I've been on his podcast twice. We've hung out. I would consider him a friend. I wouldn't say he's my best friend or anything, but Jesse's cool. He's funny. Let me see. Tom said you have Trump derangement syndrome. Get some help. STFU. When brainwashed boomers yell at me, why did they always like sporadically like he's like he put 4 commas in a row? Why can they never spell or like punctuate properly? I don't understand. It's like a bizarre manic rant or something. Like, It's like, here, let's lower the IQ 75 points for everybody and just say you have derangement syndrome. Like, that's the guy that'll end up getting set up at the Capitol. And then, like, it's like the people like that guy are just rotting in prison now because they're like, Mike Pence go save it. It's like, yeah, dude. Yeah, the guy who gave $18 billion to the pharmaceutical industry, hired Mitch McConnell's wife, hired the swamp, set his supporters up, and ran around selling vaccines during the mandates and telling people that he was the father of it. Oh yeah, dude. That, like, good luck, my guy. God bless you. Someone said, MAGA, love you, anomaly. Appreciate that, Denise. Thank you so much. Someone said boomers are the most detestable generation for many reasons. I don't know. I don't. There's every. I don't hate boomers like that, but every generation can be very annoying. There's pros and cons every generation, but I do think that, like, if I could, because, I'll talk about my own generation in a while. I'm not trying to pick on boomers. I think there's, like, a wild lack of self-awareness and, like, a false confidence. Like, a lot of Republican boomers are like Christian Zionists, and it's like the lack of self-awareness is just, like, insane. It's like they think that they need to pass speech laws that prevent them from saying a certain group killed Jesus for a certain group of people that don't even believe that Jesus is the Messiah. And in many ways, some people do, but some people, like, they don't even really like you. So it's like the lack of self-awareness to understand how that's not Christian or Catholic, and it makes absolutely no sense. It's like mind-blowing how they don't get it, but they just don't. So it's like they'll complain about all the problems that are happening in America, the boomers, but they're causing all the problems and they don't realize it. And they're just as dumb as, like, the young generation that they make fun of, and they can't figure it out, So it's like, it's not even worth arguing with these people, because if they haven't figured it out in the first 50 years of their life, and they're yelling at you with 4 commas in a row and all caps marks, it's like, there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to convince these people. The younger generation, I think they're like, they don't even know what gender they are. They're pathetic and they're weak. And I kind of feel bad for them because they didn't mean to be that way. Probably the same way boomers and millennials don't mean to be the way they are. Like, no one asked to be this way. It's probably just you're a product of your environment. Like, does the younger generation mean to be this way? No, they got brainwashed when they were young, and that's all they know. And same with, like, boomers, probably, they just got tricked. Like, they think, like, America is about the moon landing and, like, Zionism, and, like, without that, it's like they were floating the Orthodox in Israel. I'm not saying this to everybody. You shouldn't blame everybody, but the Orthodox in Israel were floating a law to make preaching Christianity illegal in Israel. Why? Because they don't want people preaching Christianity, because they don't care about Jesus. They don't think he's the Messiah, and they think you're idiots and annoying. So it's like, and then, like, Christian Zionists will be like, we need to pass speech laws in America to support our greatest ally. It's like, you're as dumb as a liberal. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to even, like, explain it. It's like, you want to pass speech laws to say that you can't talk about a foreign country who's trying to outlaw your religion because they hate you. They're like, they love us. It's like, they love you because they can control you, and you're like a useful idiot, like attack dog. The second that you actually, like, wake up and figure stuff out, it's like, let's see how much they like it. It's like, so I don't know. It's like, listen to what Mark Levin said about TikTok. No, listen to what he says about Ukraine. It's not hard for me to figure out what's going on, but I'm limited in what I can and can't say, because they say that everything's hate speech now. Luckily, and this is weird because it's like boomers are more conservative, which is awesome, but they're also wrong about the most important topic, which is terrible. It's quite the paradox. The younger generation is insane. I don't want to share a city with these people, let alone ever let them run. I'd rather have a boomer run my city than a little, like, 21, whatever, like, whatever. I don't even know what that generation's called. Generation transgender or whatever. Are they generation trans? But these people are trying to talk about certain topics that boomers don't know about, and then boomers are trying to stop them. It's the ultimate paradox. It's like everybody's kind of stupid and kind of smart, and there's pros and cons to both sides, but, like, it's like, it's just quite the paradox out here, because it's like, just because I think that, like, younger generation are questioning certain foreign narratives that are really important, which they are, they can't function or run a city. So it's like, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's quite the paradox. Um, which topic are boomers wrong about? Well, I just told you. I just said Christian Zionists think that the only way to be a Christian is to destroy America, sell out our Constitution, and just bleed America dry. And then that's all happening in America. And they're like, I don't like that this is happening. You won't not let it happen, and you don't even understand why that's happening. Just go to the State Department website and search defining anti-Semitism and read the anti-Semitism laws. You can't talk about bankers or media. You can't say Ben Shapiro has loyalty to a foreign country. You can't say any of this stuff. You can't say these people killed Jesus. You can't talk about that. You can't question history. You can't do that. Like, these are all the rules that Republican Christian Zionists are passing through law. Like, and then you complain about Zelensky in Ukraine. Okay, who's Zelensky? Who's going to make money off that? Who's rebuilding it? BlackRock? Who's the CEO of BlackRock? Larry Fink? Good luck connecting the dots there. You just passed a speech law in America. Why does being a Christian American mean you have to pass a speech law for a foreign country? Like, it doesn't make any sense because you got tricked into thinking a Bible verse meant something it didn't. It's ridiculous, you know? People are so stupid. So it's like, what, they're wrong about the most important topic that literally connects everything, and they're literally selling America out while crying that it's being sold out. It's like, what, you know? And that's why the younger generation hates the older generation, is because the younger generation is broke. They can't afford anything. They're pathetic because they were raised terribly. And then they listen to their boomer parents say that they can't give them a couple $1 billion because they're $50,000 in debt. Meanwhile, their boomer parents have given $100 billion to Israel, and say that they're like, that's why the younger generation hates boomers, because it's like, we don't have money for you spoiled kids, but you have money for foreign countries, though. It's like, you've given more money than that, not to your kids, but to a foreign country. So it's quite the paradox, because I disagree with the liberals on almost everything, but like the older boomer Christians are ruining everything. They're like, there's a reason America's not a Christian country anymore. Like, you can't figure it out. It's like, why is nothing in America Christian? Here's a little game you could play, because I'm not allowed to read it on my feed without being called anti-Semitic. So I'll just tell you to look it up. Go look up Al Goldstein, who is the founder of pornography, and go to the part about Christianity and go read why he said he brought porn to America, and what inspires him to push pornography on American kids. He talks about purposely doing it to a certain race and a certain religion. He hates Christians. And he said that. He's like, I hate you. I'm doing this to defile you. And you're like, let's give them our money. It's like, oh yeah. Like, is that what the Bible says? Does the Bible say, if a group of people that doesn't believe any of Jesus's laws tells you to do something, that you funnel all your money to them and pass laws to say that no one can criticize them? Like, you deserve to lose your country. Like, Europe is deservingly falling and America is deservingly failing. Like, why wouldn't it fail? Like, you don't have. And then there's people like Mark Levin who try to trick Christians into thinking that Ukraine versus Russia is good. They're just trying to gut one of the only strong Christian Catholic countries and turn it into San Francisco. And you'll never, like, and then even Ted Cruz is like, oh, Uganda needs to be gayer. It's like, the Republican Party is just like controlled opposition to the 1000th degree. It's just like, but it's not worth arguing with boomers about it, because if they haven't been able to figure out to this point, they're never going to, unless they're very open-minded and thoughtful about it. But like, at this point, what, like, it couldn't possibly be more obvious. But the thing is, they've got most of the boomers wrapped up with Dan Bongino and Mark Levin. Like, boomers love Dan Bongino and Mark Levin and people like Ben Shapiro. So it's like trying to convince a 70-year-old that Rachel Maddow's not right. It's like too late. They're just like going to believe that forever. Someone said, how about even the hardest working generation still can't afford a house, even in a skill? Well, this is another thing too, is like, there's a lot of things going on, but there's a reason people always take it back to the Federal Reserve. Once the Federal Reserve was created, it's this quote unquote independent banking system. You're not in control of your bank. Game over. You lose. If you don't control, like, you're not winning the lottery. If you don't own the casino wins the lottery. They're taking a bigger percentage of it. You lose. Okay. After 2013, every time they send money to foreign aid, every time they print money, whenever they got rid of the gold standard, especially, our currency is being inflated. Like, everyone thinks the currency, like, oh, when's it going to go back to the prices it was? I don't know. When's it going to go back to 15-cent ice creams and $10, 10-cent like burgers? Never. That America's never coming back. And say the average burger used to be a nickel, or let's just say it was a quarter. Now it's like $7 or $15. The wages have not risen in that amount. Like, say you made $20,000 a year and you could buy everything. Now you make $60,000 a year. Like, the inflation is times 100, but your income is times 3, or the average income is times 3. We're never going back to that because our entire banking system is controlled. And every time they print money and anytime they send it to a foreign country, you're getting poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer. And that's why nobody can afford anything. So it's like, it was already bad. Then you have the banking crash or whatever. The worst thing, in my view, that's been done in modern history is Donald Trump in 2020. He fucked over America for the next 100 years. Like, America's fucked. I'm not like panicking or anything, but it's like, I work my ass off because now I used to be like, oh, I work my ass off and I could be really wealthy and I could do well. And hopefully that could be still the case, but whatever. At this point, it's like, I got to work my ass off just to like maintain and not eat poison. It's like, if you're, and this is not fair because I don't believe that middle and lower class people should have to suffer, but I see the writing on the wall. This country is going to turn into a third world country where the only way to stay safe is to be rich. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you could be middle class or lower middle class and you could live in a safe neighborhood. Those days are gone. Those days are over. And it's due to a lot of things: immigration, illegal immigration, demographics, things people don't want to talk about, income, Federal Reserve. There's a lot of pieces of that puzzle. But the days of being middle class or lower middle class or even upper middle class and being safe, they're gone. You got to be rich to be safe now, which is fucked up. I don't even want to think this way, but I'm not stupid. I see what's going on. Neighborhoods that used to be safe, they're not safe anymore. And it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse. But anyway, it's like, why is that all happening? How did it all happen? Why are we sending $100 billion to Ukraine when this is happening? Who do you think wants to send $100 billion to Ukraine? Who do you think wants to send $100 billion to Zelensky? Who do you think wants to have BlackRock rebuild it? Why do you think they want to go to war with like the only Christian Catholic country left in that area? Like, wake up, So it's like boomers are like as complicit as the younger generation. They're just they lack self-awareness to figure it out. So in general, it's like, like, Trump's not going to save you from the bankers. He is a banker, essentially. He's controlled by the bankers. Like, it's like, he's going to just be like, oh, I'll lower the interest rates or whatever. And it's like, however he manipulates the interest rates, he's talking about that all the time. It's like a Band-Aid. Like, I'm not like an expert at economics, but it's like when he manipulates the interest rates, whether you raise them or lower them, there's going to be a cost. Like, you have to finesse the system because it's based on debt and it's based on fiat. But it's like, once you do that, like, it could look good for a while and then it's going to go to shit. So like, Trump is a giant illusion. It's like, he prints $6 to $8 trillion during COVID. The economy crashes, it goes back up, and then it crashes again afterwards. And it's like, it always was going to crash, just like this year. This is just my theory, and this is not financial advice because this is just my intuition based with a little knowledge, but I'm in no means an expert in this category. I'm banking on the economy being pretty good this year because they want to say Biden has a good economy. So I think they're going to try to manipulate the market to make it boom, 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 boom. But it depends how you do it. Hopefully they're not too reckless with it, because the more reckless you are with making it look good, the harder it's going to crash eventually, or the money's going to come from somewhere. So, I think this year is going to go well in the stock market because, say the stock market like imploded, in October. Biden's going to lose the election, so he might lose anyway. But, it's like, that's why they have the Bill Mahers of the world and the Jon Stewarts of the world to come out and be like, listen, guys, it's not that bad, because it's like boom, 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 boom. But if you artificially inflate it, eventually it's going to have to get rearranged. But that's why, like, these things are never going to change. Trump's not going to fix the economy. He blew it up. It's all this false hope. He's just a false, he's not even rural. Like, rural people love Donald Trump, and he's been rich his whole life. It's crazy. And then they get mad at me. I was born and raised on a farm. I'm the the son of factory workers, or I mean, I'm grandson. My grandfather's worked in a factory. My dad delivered mail. My stepfather works on a farm. You know what I'm saying? I had no money until I was like 30. It's like I was broke my whole life. It's like, and they get mad at me for talking about this stuff, but they worship a billionaire who's literally gave his properties to the banks like 30, 40 years ago. It's it's a joke, but whatever. I get why people like Trump, because he's kind of authentic, but like that's not how the economy is going to be fixed. He's like a false hope. And like Ron Paul's worth listening to. G. Edward Griffin is worth listening to. You know what I'm saying? Like, Ron Paul gets it. I know people don't like to listen to Ron Paul, or they don't think he's strong enough to be president or whatever, but like, he's right. Trump's not doing shit. It's like he's just kicking the can down the road, and maybe he'll artificially inflate stuff for a year just to crash it all into the ground when it really matters the most. And then he'll just play stupid like every politician does. And they'll blame Biden, and Biden will blame them. And neither party cares, because they're not even that important anyway. They're just like the face of a bigger entity behind them. They're the salesmen of the people that don't want their faces to be shown, or at least like their cards to be shown. So, it's like, I think this stuff is fixable, but it requires somebody who cares. And as long as the politicians don't care and the people worship the politicians that don't care, there's no reason for it to change. And there's nobody to blame. There's no country to blame. There's no group of people to blame. And there's no religion to blame. You got to blame yourself. You know what I'm saying? And the self-awareness is something that nobody seems to get in this world. Every like Black organization and Black, like whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like activists, they don't have self-awareness most of the time, and it's just all blame. And they're not wrong about everything. I'm not saying every Black activist is wrong, but it's like, let's talk about history. Let's talk about corruption. Let's talk about what white people are doing. Let's talk about it. I'm not afraid of it. But also take accountability, because for some reason, Black entertainers are promoting murder music, and they're their own worst enemy now for whatever reason. So stop your own people from selling out your own people, or else, like, if you tell the truth to certain Black organizations and Black communities, not all, but a lot, they get mad at you. So it's like you almost have to play the game they're playing, or else everybody gets mad at you. That's called self-awareness. When it comes to Christians and white people or whatever, zero self-awareness. Like I said, Christian Zionists, no self-awareness. Christian leaders in churches sending money to Ukraine, no self-awareness. White people in America, I'm not saying all, but I'm just saying, like, in general, like, oh, we're losing this and that. You deserve to lose, because you're not paying attention, and you're just like too weak, and everybody's afraid to talk. And it's just like, you don't just get things just because of your skin color, and you don't just get things just because you want things. Everything in history has happened for a reason, and this country is falling apart for a reason. Quote unquote, reverse racism is happening now for a reason. I'm not saying it's right, but if you don't have self-awareness and self-accountability to identify the problem and see your own leaders selling you out and your own leaders being too weak, you lose. And dare I say, because I've went through other things too, in the Jewish community, self-awareness and self-accountability would go a long way, but playing the victim and calling everybody anti-Semites all the time seems to be the strategy that a lot of groups are deploying. And it just makes everything worse and worse and worse and worse. When I say that the First Amendment matters in America, someone's like, well, this is different than LGBTQ because this and that and this. It's like, does self-awareness play into your strategy at all, or no? No self-awareness. If anyone points anything out, you just cover it up, lie about it, and pass speech law. Like, it doesn't work. That's why, like, in the last year, Israel's had more opposition probably in the world than they ever have, as far as like activists and stuff. And it's from their own actions. It's not to say what the other side did was right. I'm not saying that. It's just like self-awareness. If you don't have self-awareness and self-accountability at all, there's nothing anyone's ever going to be able to do for you, because you're not being honest about the situation. And that's like the world in itself. That's why, as an individual, no matter what racial group or religion you're a part of, self-awareness is king. Because you could be Jewish and say these people are being mean to me, or you could be a Christian and say these people are oppressing me, or you could be black and say these people are doing this. But at the end of the day, God gave you this life. So do you have the self-awareness and the self-accountability to be the best version of yourself you could be? Because if you become the best version of yourself, you will be gifted, you will be rewarded, you will create a narrative for yourself. There's plenty of successful black, white, and Jewish people that have entertained millions of people, that are loved around the world by all ethnicities. And that's because of who they are, not who the net sum of their group is. I'm mostly white. I'm part Puerto Rican. I'm Christian. I was raised Catholic-ish. I like my grandparents were. My parents a little less, but it's like I'm not the net sum of everything. It's like I'm not ashamed of who I am, but I get things because I work hard, and I don't play the victim. I never said, oh, I can't rap because I'm white. It's like maybe it's going to be harder for me because nobody thinks I should be rapping, but I got to be really good. I got to get even better. Use it for inspiration. So I think I think everyone could benefit from self-awareness, but no one seems to have any. And that's like the issue in the world. Like liberals have no self-awareness, conservatives have no self-awareness, and then they just fight on Twitter all day about like they're the same type of person just arguing with the other. It's like, it's messed up, but it is what it is. It's just when people like come and they're like, well, this and that. And it's like, why don't you think that group should have an ounce of self-awareness? Like they should, like one group should have their own special set of rules, whether it be black or Jewish. And it's like, okay, they're going to do this and then everyone's just going to like it. People are going to naturally not like it. And not everyone's going to be hateful. It's just like, it would be like, this is like a extreme example. I'm not saying this is happening, but like, it would be like if somebody like robbed you and then you're like, yo, you robbed me. And you're like, yo, that's hate speech. And you're like, yo, stop. I don't like that. And they're like, oh, you don't like me? You don't like all my people? You're like, no, I just don't like you. And like, oh, that's hateful. Like that's like the vibe of what's going on here, where it's like, like everything is like rigged racially, but then you're not allowed to talk about it. It's like whether it's black in the entertainment industry or with the speech laws, like passing laws that say you can't talk about Israel, it's not going to make people like Israel more. I'm just wondering what the like strategy is, because like with people like Al Sharpton and those type of leaders, it's the same thing with the government and tragedies. Like when a tragedy happens, they infringe on your Second Amendment. When a tragedy happens, they print money. When a tragedy happens, they give money to the pharmaceutical industry. It's the same thing with like Al Sharpton. It's like, oh, there's a black tragedy. Oh, look who's here to fundraise. It's like, Black Lives Matter, Sean King. It's the same thing with certain Jewish organizations where it's like the more people get upset by their behavior, the more they fundraise off of it. So it's like, is that on purpose or by mistake? Because to me, I don't like hate. I don't like seeing negativity. I don't like seeing war. So my goal is to like stop it, but I'm not sure if anyone actually really wants to stop it. Cause like the second that it stops is the second that people can stop using it to make a fortune off of. So it's like, it's like, do they really want to stop it? You would hope so. You would think so, but I'm not really sure. Cause anytime you say like self-awareness is part of it, it's like the Anti-Defamation League. If you look them up, they're an international Jewish organization, not a local one, international, which means world Jewish organization. And they're saying that even video games should be censored and monitored for hate speech. Nobody likes that. Literally, it doesn't even matter if you're left wing, right wing, Christian, Muslim, Jewish. 99% of the country despises you trying to censor speech on video games. And you're a Jewish organization. It doesn't mean it's everyone's fault, but like, do you have any self-awareness of what you're doing? Are you purposely doing that to fundraise off it? I know a lot of Jewish people, left wing and right wing, they think that they're purposely doing that to get people upset so then they could like profit off the upsetness. Like I'm not sure what's going on, but it's like one of the speech laws that was passed was you can't say, this is one of the laws that Trump, DeSantis, Youngkin, Noam, Sarah Huckabee Sanders passed. They passed a lot. One of the laws is you're not allowed to say that any Jewish person in America has loyalty to the collective of Jews worldwide over their country. It's like, you mean like what the ADL says on its website? You mean Ben Shapiro's mouth every 2 seconds? Like, he would probably admit at a certain point that he does have loyalty to his people worldwide. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not asking him to like America more than this or that. I don't give a shit. Dude. Who cares what people like? Like, it's like telling someone to like the Ravens instead of the Giants. Like who you like. But to pass a speech law in the United States of America into government legislation, into the legal jargon, and rewrite the definition in order to use it in court cases, how is that going to make people like you? It's not, but I'm just wondering, like, more people are annoyed. Like, all Twitter is literally, that's all people talk about every day, all the time. To be honest, it's even annoying to me too, because I like sports. I like other, I'm not trying to talk about this shit all the time. It's like, it's not fun for me. It's not something I want to like focus on. It's not that fun of a topic, and it's not like a really uniting topic, but that's all you see on Twitter all the time. And I guarantee you, if they buy TikTok, they're going to try to force Elon Musk to buy to sell Twitter as well at a certain point, because that's what they're trying to stop, the conversations that are being had on X and TikTok. And I don't even like TikTok. I'm just being honest. It's like the reason people are having these discussions now is not because they're just hateful out of nowhere. It's because they've been forced into these conversations through the actions that are done that nobody wants accountability for. I never woke up and thought about this stuff. My parents never talked about this stuff. It's not like I was raised to think this way. I only had love and respect, and I still do, but I'm just saying, like, this, the only reason that it ever crossed my radar was like the speech laws. It's like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't like lopsided rules. Like, it would be like hiring a black person and a white person and telling the black person, you can say this, and this to this person, and you could call them names, but if that person defends themselves, they're racist. So it's like, not only can you not call them names, but they could call you names, and you can't even tell them to stop, or else that's racism. It's like, I don't like that. I wouldn't even like it if it was my race being benefited, because it's like, I'm not an unfair person. I'm a fair person. So it's like, I wouldn't want to do this to other ethnic groups. I wouldn't want to do this to other religions. And I certainly don't want it done to me. So that's why everybody's having these discussions about Zionism now, is because it's like, it's impacting almost every aspect of life, while they call you anti-Semitic for saying that it's impacting every aspect of life. Nobody's asking for it to impact like, I'm not asking for Ron DeSantis to pass a speech law and Donald Trump to pass a speech law, and Dan Crenshaw's biggest donor and Lankford's biggest donor to be that, or Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Like, no one's asking these people to do that. They just keep doing it. And then anytime you notice it, they just yell at you. But it's like, no one cares anymore, because everyone notices. Like, the large majority of society, it's like impossible not to notice. It's like with like Ukraine. Like, how popular is it to send money to Ukraine? In Congress, it's popular, but in the national discussion, it's not popular. Like, these people do not represent what's actually popular. So I don't know what their plan or strategy is to like stop people from thinking that way, but it's like 80% of the country probably like. And it's not hate. It's not like 80% of the country is hateful. It's not hate. People are simply asking for fairness, a conversation, to not be blacklisted and censored for having a basic opinion. To, it's not crazy demands people have. For me, even someone said in the comment section, like, oh, that person likes this country, or that. I don't choose friends based on foreign policy. It's just like, obviously it's nice when people agree with you on everything, but just be reasonable and be fair, and don't persecute me for being right. And don't take away my First Amendment. I'm not a very demanding person. Like, it's not like agree with all of my foreign policy. People that say stuff like that to me, no offense, is like, you annoy me more than, like, some people will be like, why are you talking to her? Why are you trying to please who I talk to? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, the people that try to police that annoy me more than like, it's just as annoying as when the media does it. Someone said one family we know in Dana Point had a Ukrainian flag on the front lawn, and that's their First Amendment right. But it's, maybe they're from Ukraine and they really like Ukraine. Okay, cool. Maybe they're not from Ukraine and they just watch MSNBC. Suspect. Maybe they're not from Ukraine, but for some reason Mark Levin told them. Like, I'm not really sure why people are doing what they're doing, but like, everyone has the right to fly a flag. But it's definitely like annoying. Like, I'll see like a Ukraine flag, and it's like, are you Ukrainian, or are you just watching television? Because like what, I don't know what people think they're doing. And I'm gonna leave on this note. because it's a big message for like everything. If you say you love Ukraine and you say I'm being hateful to Ukraine, but Ukrainian men are dying and you don't even realize that they're dying, or you don't care that they're dying, and they're dying in possibly in vain because they're not even going to get what they think they're going to get. Do you really like those people? You know what I'm saying? When I talk about anything, whether it's Christianity or Zionism or black or Muslim or white, my goal is love, peace, and to be honest, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which every American should at least have the chance of trying. With that being said, like I'm saying things that are considered edgy because I mean well. Other people, they do all these things. They don't care. And I'll stick with Christians and conservatives and Catholics. I'm not even going to talk about Jewish people for this part, because say Dan Crenshaw, Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, they're not even Jewish. And the thing is, they're taking donor money and then they parade around and say that they're helping Jewish people. You're not helping Jewish people. In many ways, you're actually just like using them and exploiting them the same way that other races use black and Hispanics. Like, oh, I love black people, let's make the inner cities shittier. Oh, I love Hispanics, let's make crime rise. How much do you love these people if you're making crime rise? So it's like the people that claim to love Jews in Israel so much, 9 times out of 10 in politics, they're just receiving hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in donor money to say that. Like, I stand with this country. What does that mean? I stand with Poland. What do you want me to stand up and sit back down? Like, what does that even mean? You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, when they say that, they're not saying they stand with the country. They're taking money. But the thing is, like, at the end of the day, if you're supporting a country that's fighting a war, doing something stupid, and you're not allowing people to have a conversation in America about it, you don't like these people more than me. I don't accept this narrative that you're so loving. Anyone that's ever called me hateful, oh, you're so hateful, I watch their streams and all I see is hate. I'm like, you're not like that nice. You're actually very angry and hateful. It's just you're using groups as shields to pretend like you're so loving, but you're actually doing things that not only messes stuff up here, but it messes stuff up for them too. Like, why would that country want so much of the world to hate them now? Like, that's not good. Like, I don't like that people hate America now. That sucks for me. Like, I want people to like America. So all these people pushing the propaganda, you're not helping me. You're making the world hate us, and it's annoying. So it's like, these things, that my true intentions are to make things more peaceful and helpful. It's not to like hurt or hate anybody, obviously, because that's done when nobody tells the truth. That's when people feel super divided and super like they got the short end of the stick. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. God bless you. I'm going to keep this under 2 hours, special Saturday edition. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. And yeah, appreciate you guys for being here. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk. For $5 a month, you can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful. My free email list is stayintouchwithme.com. So check the links below in the description